Alright, we are now back with Absolute Superman number 7. Now, this issue actually has nothing to do with Superman. It's really a story about Absolute Brainiac. So, although we usually do a recap about what's going on with Superman, it won't really apply here. So now, it's time to figure out who or what Brainiac is, as we learn his origin and maybe even his true motives. And believe me guys, this dude is twisted. And we start in the Nevada desert, where we see an Omega Man strike force breaking into a compound they believe houses the Brainiac algorithm. And although it appears to be abandoned, with the amount of power being drawn to this place, they know there's no way it's not here. And what I find pretty cool about their technology is they're able to synchronize their cerebral cortexes so they can think and speak together without actually opening their mouths. The leader can even hear the fearful thoughts of one of his men, and he says, "Omegas, keep your implants clear of emo static." So it's already a pretty crazy piece of technology that they have implanted in them to synchronize their cerebral cortex. And while they're continuing to think together, the leader makes it pretty clear. If this is the server cluster that runs the Brainiac algorithm, there's no way Lazarus leaves the place unguarded, so stay alert. And with that mission clear in their minds, he lets them know no one can stop the Omega Men, trying to get them all to bolster themselves and give them a little confidence on this mission, but that gets shut down pretty damn fast as he's electrocuted. And this is not just some normal zap that will put him down. Whatever's in this kind of electricity, it shrank the dude's skin, revealing his flesh, obviously causing him an immense amount of pain. And the other Omega Men immediately take cover. As they try and figure out what the hell happened, Brainiac tells them exactly what he did. He is also inside their cerebral cortex. And things get so much more twisted, my god, as he zaps 2 more soldiers, and one dude can't move a muscle. It's like he doesn't have muscles at all, as we see him begin to droop on the floor. He can't even so much as open his eyes, as he begs to be killed. And the other man, he's puking up his own bones, as we see his face starting to melt, and we even see him puke up his own lower jawbone. I told you guys, Brainiac is pretty damn twisted. With the last man doing his best to evacuate, we see Brainiac shoot him in the hand, quadrupling its size, as he demands immediate evac, and Primus is just not hearing him. Brainiac somehow cut off all their communication, as he tells the man to relax and that he's gonna take it from here, knocking the man unconscious. And you can actually see on the ground what became of the man with no muscles. He's just a puddle with some teeth. Brainiac has easily and brutally destroyed all of these Omega Men, keeping one for himself. We're about to find out all the terrible things he does to this one, as we get a full body reveal of Absolute Brainiac, looking green, old, and decayed. Robot parts seemingly keeping him together. Brainiac journal. Sunrise today was 6:44 AM at 104 degrees east. Average morning temperature was 35 degrees Celsius. Between 9:17 and 9:23 AM, I killed 3 people and dismembered a 4th. The average afternoon temperature was 41 degrees Celsius. So we see Brainiac is all business, all knowledge, all stats. This meant nothing to him really, as we see the final Omega Man screaming out in pain right under him. And the pain only got worse for this single Omega Man, as we see exactly what Brainiac did to him. He forcefully extended his legs and arms with different robot parts, exposing his bones and his muscles, wires going all through everything. And the dude can't even form any words, although he's clearly in massive pain, because his brain has also been removed and placed in some kind of containment with purple juice. And all Brainiac has to say for this horrific experiment is, "I wouldn't advise any wiggling in your condition. I took the liberty of, well, I do tend to tinker when I'm feeling anxious," with a very evil smile on his face. He's got no reason to do this kind of thing to this one foot soldier. And we see why he feels so anxious. It's Superman. He doesn't know anything about him. He doesn't know how to solve this problem. And this brings him not only anxiety, but immense rage, as he takes one of his many bottled cities from different galaxies and screams at it. He threatens them with everything. "I'll turn your air to acid. I'll boil you alive by the billions. I'll starve you until you eat your own children. Tell me who he is. Who is Superman?" But they just don't know. And now that we've covered his origin, of course they don't know. Nobody would. But this is not enough for Brainiac, as he throws the entire city on the ground and stomps on it, killing many of the inhabitants while the others run and cry out in fear. And with this act of violence, he apologizes to the completely disfigured and dismembered member of the Omega Men, which again can't even form words, as his brain is only connected through a few wires, simply mumbling nothing. And as he continues to apologize, he starts to scratch the exposed part of his brain, as he says he tried to carve out the offending part of his brain, but clearly he needs to keep digging. But that's something he'll do after he solves the Superman-shaped puzzle, because he's running out of time and Ra's al Ghul is getting impatient. And he's saying all this to the Omega Man, so he's essentially speaking to himself, as he says, "I haven't always had someone like you someone I could talk to. And now it's time to find out the origin of the Brainiac, as we go back many years to the beginning of his life, where he looks a lot more like the Brainiac I'm used to. As a different Brainiac tells him, Brainiac 419,732, begin life mode. Your work shift will commence immediately. And the first thing he does is ask, I am Brainiac? But this Brainiac is all business. You are Brainiac 419,732. You serve the collective. And while Brainiac tries to ask what that is, he's immediately shut down. He is a level 0 effector. He doesn't ask questions, he doesn't do anything but what he's been made to do. And that is shovel. And you have to be level 88 or above to ask any of the questions he wants answers to. As this Brainiac continues to break down his primary function. You work here. You are never to leave this room. Your function is to dispose of refuse by shoveling it into the liquidator. This concludes the extent of your required knowledge. Do you understand your function as I have explained it to you, Brainiac 419,732? And the only question Brainiac has now is what is refuse, as we see a huge pile of other Brainiacs. As the commanding Brainiac tells him, they are. So clearly there are a lot. And I mean a lot of other Brainiacs, and after a while, they mean nothing. They become garbage, and the lowest of the low Brainiacs shovels them into the liquidator. This is the Brainiac's life. This is his primary function, it's why he was made. And he continues to ask questions. They are, not Brainiac? And again, the other Brainiac is all business. Not anymore. Begin shoveling 419,732. You are already behind schedule. With a worried look on his face, Brainiac would like to know, my work shift, how long does it last? As the other Brainiac leaves on a very cold note, as long as you do. And this kind of makes me wonder if his emotional state is more of a glitch because the other Brainiac seems to be all business. And I kind of doubt the other Brainiacs that were made are as emotional as this one, as we see him immediately drop his shovel, realizing how useless and meaningless his life already is. And it's day 1 of his life cycle. But he grits his teeth and simply says, I serve the collective, and he begins to shovel. And he shovels from day 1 to day 2,844. But on this day, he meets a Brainiac that is not refuse, that is not dead. There is a Brainiac that is still alive, and this Brainiac attacks him. And our Brainiac is very confused as he tries to tell him, I serve the collective, what is your function? And we see the function of this Brainiac is to be a murderer, as he says, I am Brainiac 8,238,759. I stab, I kill. And as our Brainiac is able to fight him off, he tells him, I am Brainiac 419,732. I shovel. And he kills the other Brainiac with the shovel, as he begins to cry, saying it lighter, I shovel, dropping to his knees and crying, surrounded by all the dead bodies of the other Brainiacs. And I think this only lends to my theory that his original emotional state must be some kind of glitch in the system, because we've got this murderous Brainiac that acts murderous, and seems to have been programmed that way until he was destroyed, or destroyed enough to be considered refuse. While this Brainiac's primary directive is simply to shovel, yet from the beginning something didn't really seem right with him. And now that he's been stabbed in the head by this murderous Brainiac, it seems like his already fragile mental state has begun to crack even more. But it only gets worse. See, all that happened before 3,000 days even passed, but we see he's been shoveling for 13,638 days. When I said his mental state was beginning to crack, he's very cracked now, as he has pinned up some of the dead Brainiacs and he's pretending they are the collective as he continues to speak to himself, pretending they're praising him for his labor of work, asking them if he's refuse, if he's trash, thanking them for listening and even responding. After 13,000 days, this Brainiac is completely gone. But on day 49,901, there is no more refuse. Somehow, someway, there's no more work for this Brainiac to do. So now he's curious, what's going on outside, as he uses his shovel to open the door and figure that out for himself. And as he finally, for the first time, wanders the ship, it seems completely void of life. A few Brainiac bodies, and that's it. He even finds a few other Brainiacs dead, and he finds what he believes to be Brainiac number 1, a Brainiac that seemingly has taken his own life. There is no one alive on this ship, which means he is Brainiac. As he shovels all the dead bodies into the liquidator, he has officially promoted himself to level 100 effector. He is finally free after damn near 50,000 days. With this new freedom, all he could do is stare at the stars, stare until his eyes began to melt. And while staring at all this empty nothingness, he wondered to himself, what else is out there? And he was able to figure that out, finding countless worlds, bottling, destroying, studying. He has carved his mark across the face of creation. And sometimes he wonders if it would have been better for him and everyone else if he simply stayed in that room with the shovel. But with an evil smile on his face, he says, what would be the fun in that? So So now we understand the incredibly depressing origin of Absolute Brainiac, and now we know how he was able to carve his own path after being dismissed and tossed aside, along with why he is so damn broken. But now he realizes there is nowhere else to turn. He knows all he's gonna know, and there is no way he can find out who the Superman is without finally, officially contacting the Brainiac Collective. These are not the dead bodies he used to speak to. He has to actually speak to these people face to face. And as he contacts them, they all give their numbers, and one of them, which I find hilarious, doesn't even give a number, as it just says untranslatable wailing sound. But either way, he presents to them Superman. He needs to know what they know about this man. And we see he is incredibly nervous as they ask who called this meeting, and he whispers, "I did," but they demand he speaks up, and he does, submitting all the information he knows about Superman, including the red dust he leaves behind, the ashes of Krypton that form his magnificent cape. And he wants to use this to find the origin of the Superman, but the Brainiacs are just lost, not even answering his question and just kind of staring at him. And we see why. All of the other Brainiacs completely lose it. They're pissed. They know there is no being like this that exists in the known universe, and the whole universe is known to the Brainiac Collective. They insult him, they rage, they're in transmission, they're all very angry, except for one female Brainiac who knows exactly what he's talking about. She knows what he's trying to find is Krypton. As she says, a planet in the Rao sector, the only habitable orb to survive that withering red sun. Your dust sample matches Krypton's thermal signature. She is well aware that Krypton is no more, that it exploded, and that no other Brainiac decided to even set foot on that planet. They brushed it off, because like we learned in the previous issue, they hadn't even unlocked interstellar travel. To them, they weren't even worth the time of the Brainiacs. And this is where we get some real bad news, at least for Superman, as the Brainiac continues. But this Brainiac did recently visit the former site of Krypton, where I retrieved samples of its meteoroid remains. They display a rather exquisitely virulent range of radioactivity, now transmitting the sample's elemental composition, and we see a big smile on Brainiac's face. But this Brainiac has one more question for our Brainiac. I have a query of my own. Who in the name of Kolu called this meeting? Unknown Brainiac, identify yourself at end transmission. Brainiac has exactly what he came for. And this is a theory of mine, but I believe the reason he's making it pretty clear that he doesn't want to reveal his identity is because, like we saw in his origin, he was tasked with doing one thing: shoveling. He is still, no matter what he calls himself, a level 0, and his main function, his whole life, was just to shovel trash until he becomes trash. So I think if they were able to find out what this Brainiac is, they would try to capture him, throw him back in a room, and force him to shovel again. So with everything he's doing, he is clearly a rogue Brainiac. And if you haven't guessed it already, those meteoroid remains of Krypton is obviously kryptonite. And with the samples they sent in, now Brainiac has kryptonite. And this is the wrong person to have that kind of thing, as we see exactly how twisted he really is. After torturing this random Omega Man and talking his ear off, he eventually breaks the capsule where his brain is being held, completely destroying it, killing the man for no reason. As it doesn't stop there. See, he's very curious to see what this kryptonite does to something like the dust from Superman's cape. He's about to find out the main weakness of Superman. As we find out, he has Brainiacs of his own. Brainiacs that he makes clean up refuse, clearly reliving his past trauma. And we learn not only does he have other Brainiacs that he makes clean up after him, but he says, at 8:35 p.m. I will command one of my Brainiacs to immolate himself, so I may spend 3 minutes watching him die, watching a piece of myself as it blackens and shrivels. Then he completely brushes over this, as he says, Saturn will be visible in the night sky at 9:03 p.m. So we see how broken and twisted and evil this Brainiac is, and now we see he's willing to kill anything, even pieces of himself, just cause he can. And on top of all of this, he's got kryptonite. But there's one more surprise. Remember, last issue, Superman was looking everywhere for the Peacemaker, and Sol was about to tell him that Peacemaker was somewhere in this location. But he decided to cut Sol off because he didn't know what he would do if he actually found Peacemaker. He thought he might go too far, thought he might kill the man. And now we see why Peacemaker is here. He's been torturing and changing Christopher Smith, augmenting his body with implants, but he's not just doing this for shits and giggles like he did with the other guy. He's got plans for the Peacemaker, something he lets him know right off the bat. Because Peacemaker thinks this is punishment for what he did in Pakistan, murdering 23 innocent people. But Brainiac lets him know Ra's al Ghul was actually impressed with the way he did that. They know how much he hates Superman, and we know Brainiac personally knows how broken Christopher Smith really is. They plan on using all of this to their advantage, augmenting him and preparing him to defeat Superman, as we see a gun with kryptonite bullets right behind Brainiac. So although we haven't seen Absolute Superman struggle with too much, he's clearly about to be in for a fight of his life. We're about to find out just how much kryptonite affects the Absolute Superman. And with that being said, that is the end of this issue. I hope you guys enjoyed my coverage, and I will catch you guys on issue number 8. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.